Happy Monday, everybody. And yes, Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. Okay, so Greg alluded to a conversation that he and I had last week about me making a big deal about the 10-year Treasury spiking up. Now, a lot of you may not know or even care about 10-year Treasuries or even understand what that has to do with the market or economics, but I'm going to kind of explain it to you. So, as financial advisors, we're looking at a lot of economics and how it's going to affect our investments. One of those is called the yield curve. The yield curve measures the uh, the yields from the U.S. government in terms of their treasuries. Now, think of it this way: if you think about it in terms of going to a bank to a CD, if you lock in your money for a little bit of time, you should earn lower interest than if you're willing to lock it up for a long period, right? The longer you're willing to give up your money, the more you should be rewarded for it. That's a normal curve, okay? And so when we're talking about a yield curve, that's what it should look like. And actually, it typically is curved. It's not a straight slope, it's typically curved, hence the yield curve. Well, that's a normal yield curve. When it goes from left to right over time, you earn a little bit, and the longer out you go, you earn a lot. Well, for the last few years, this yield curve for the US government has been inverted. That means the shorter term you go, the more interest you earn, and the longer term you go out, the less interest you earn. So the yield curve has been inverted. Now, why is that important? Because the yield curve is one of the best predictors of a recession. That's why we care. So when Greg and I say a recession's coming, it's not really Greg and Walt saying that. It's the yield curve that's saying that. And the yield curve doesn't have any dog in the race. The yield curve is just the math. If you look at every single recession in the United States history, it's been preceded by an inverted yield curve. But the recession doesn't happen until that yield curve has uninverted. That's what the big deal was last week. The 10-year went up here. So now the yield curve is uninverted. It's back to normal. Now, the important part now is, will it stay that way? Because it's a fluid instrument and these measures are always changing. Now, once it's permanently back to a regular curve, then that's probably when we're going to be in the middle of a recession at that point, at least a recognized recession. Now, all right, enough geeking out about these yield curve numbers. I am going to clarify something here, and this comes back to the new Trump administration. Now, I happen to think we're currently in a recession. Now, technically, we're not, and you'll hear economists say that we're not in a recession because GDP has been positive. GDP has been influenced by government spending, heavily influenced by government spending. Now, the Trump administration is saying we need to cut spending. If they cut spending, that may have a direct impact on that GDP number. And if that goes negative, then we're in a, by definition, we're in a full recession. That being said, you take GDP out, you look at delinquencies, you look at bankruptcies, you look at corporate bankruptcies, you look at bank defaults, you look at unemployment numbers, everything else besides GDP, gross domestic product, adds up to a recession. So I think by the time a recession finally hits, we see those numbers, everyone's going to be saying, yeah, duh, we're in a recession. I think we're already there, but I guess the numbers will tell us one way or another pretty soon, I think. Okay. With that, this is just an update, kind of explaining what Greg and I are looking at when we're looking at where's the economy going, where our investments going. Rest assured, we're looking after your money and you're doing really well. And with that, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah.